Hello. Today is day 24. I have like a week and a half to go until I get to my goal. So I'm in a good mood today. I thought I would tell a story about a time that something happened that was good. Like I got really drunk one time and I caught the biggest fish that I ever caught. It was like a 20-pound catfish. And I was like drunk when I caught it. And I had a great day. So anyway, I'm down here at this river and I'm on a boat ramp. It's like it's a boat ramp that just leads down to the river, and it's like kind of isolated. It's way out in the country, and I'd like to sit down there in the dark, listen to the tree frogs and all the insects, listen to the fish jumping out in the water. I mean, there were like so many fish jumping around out there, and every once in a while you hear like a big old fish, you know. It was like, dang, I wish I could catch that one. So anyway, I like to go down there and get plastered and go fishing. Just sit on the bank and, you know, fish on the bottom trying to catch catfish. And I got like a little bell I put on each of the things, so if I get a bite, I know about it. So I was down there one day and I had like a few of those big tall steel reserves, because it's like you can get really drunk for cheap on those things even though they taste like crap. But anyway, I just finished one of those and I get a bite. And I'm like, oh yeah, and you know, the river was kind of up and there was a little bit of a current. So I'm reeling in this fish, and I'm like, dang, it's a pretty good fish. I mean, it's really pulling, and I'm having trouble like even bringing it towards me. So I finally get it up to the bank, and I see how big this fish is. It's like that long. It's like a big old 20-pound fish. It's like the biggest catfish I ever caught. And I mean, that motherfucker was just, as soon as it saw the bank, it was gone. I had to reel it back in. So I was like, this is going to take a while. I don't even know how I'm going to get this fish out of the water. So I got the reel in one hand. After it stopped running, I'm just sitting there holding it, this reel. And I was like, it's going to be a while. I got to get me another beer. So I reached down into that cooler and opened me a beer with one hand. And I'm just sitting there drinking beer, holding this fucking fishing pole up there. And so I reel it in again. Sees the bank, it's just gone. It sees the bank and it's like, uh-oh, I'm right next to the bank, I gotta get out of here. So it runs again. And then I figured out, well, I've got my dip net with me. There's no way I'm gonna be able to just drag this fish out of the water. I'm gonna break the string and lose the fish. So I take the dip net, I put it down into the water like 3 or 4 feet out away from the bank, just it's laying flat on the ground, like just into the water. It's got a big long handle on it. So the next time, when I get that fish up the bank, it's starting to get tired from all this running and swimming and fighting this fishing pole that I got hooked to. So it gets up there and I pull the fish over the dip net, and as soon as I do, I pick up the dip net, and then I caught the fish. So that was that story. And another time when I was down there, I killed a deer with an axe. Swear to God I did. I killed a deer with an axe. So what happened when I was down there, I was getting all set up. I still had all my fishing poles out. I used about 3 or 4 fishing poles, fishing on the bottom, like over here, over there. And you know, you only really catch a fish on one of them at a time, so they don't get all tangled up. But I think I had like 3 of them out, and I had drank a couple of beers, and I had just like regular old Bud Light or something then. So I had to go to the bathroom, so I walked over by the weeds. And I'm over there pissing, and I look at it, there's a deer over there. I see this deer laying down probably 10 feet away from me. It's laying down in the weeds. So, I'm like, hey, look at this deer. And then we call up some people like, hey, you want to shoot a deer? Come down here. And this deer's just laying there. It ain't even moving. So then my dad, he's sitting there looking at it, and he's like, that deer's been shot. And it got shot in the tail, and like its whole, like, butt area was just like this gigantic wound, like that big, and it had maggots crawling around in it. It was gross. And that's when I noticed the deer was like starving to death. Its backbone was sticking up like that far, like all the way down its back. Its backbone was just like sticking up. And the deer, it obviously was going to die. It was probably suffering. So I was like, well, I'm going to just have to work up the nerve to kill this deer. And so I didn't want to do it. I mean, I was like, yeah, I want to kill a deer to put it out of its misery, but I mean, it was hard to just make myself do it because, you know, killing an animal like that with an axe is all I had. So I got good and drunk, and I was like, I tried to feed it some food. I had carrots and celery and green beans, and I threw some over there right next to it, like, you know, here's your last meal before I chop your head off. So then eventually I was like, well, I got to kill this thing. It's just laying there suffering. It's going to die. There's no chance of it, like, you know, coming back and being healthy again, because it's like just where the wound was, and there was maggots in it. I mean, the deer had no chance of survival. So I had to put it out of its misery, and I finally made up my mind that I'm going to do it. I'm going to kill this deer, and then it won't be suffering anymore. So I took that axe, and I was like chopping the weeds around it, and then the deer tried to stand up, and it couldn't even stand up. It got up onto like its elbows, and then it just fell down again. It was too weak to even stand. So I cleared a path, and then I take that axe and just wham, like right on its neck. And it was a big wound, but it didn't even bleed. So I was like, well, I turned the axe around, and I hit it in the head with the blunt end, like twice. And that put it out of its misery. It was laying there, it was dead. And then I had something to think about, like the rest of the night. It was like, I just killed this deer with an axe. It was crazy. But I did a good thing, I think, putting it out of its misery like that. So, I mean, that was kind of messed up. Killed a deer with an axe. I mean, who can say that, really? I've also shot a groundhog out of a tree. See y'all tomorrow. Or maybe the next day.